Thanks for staying with us. Now, accelerating growth is a key theme that's often on a company's agenda. The path to accelerated growth can differ significantly from company to company, even within the same industry. However, focusing on high-value ideas, providing their value through relentless validation of concept, and aiming for a fast go-to-market forms the basis for strategic design, which can enable accelerated growth regardless of operating environment. We all want to grow and be successful in our various fields. Now, do you think this is achievable through communication? You know, how important do you think communication, or what role do you think communication plays when it comes to growth and success? Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. All right, so I want to quickly hear your thoughts, Elsie and EC, because you know what? We're starting off the new year. And it's always important that at the beginning of the year, everybody's always having goals and all of that. But people do not actually pay attention to communication. And you know, when you say communication, everybody thinks it's just maybe what comes out of your mouth. I mean, thankfully, we have a guest here that would help us break it down. But you see, there is a direct link between how you communicate and your results, your success, and, you know, what's it called, your growth. You know, so maybe just throw a little more light if you've had to, like, personally pay attention to how you communicate as a person, as an individual.
So communication is very important, but I think for that importance to also play its role, it's necessary for the person you're communicating with to also have a level of understanding, a level of IQ that will meet you halfway, and then you have what we can say magic, right? Communication is important, especially when you are in a management role or in a leadership position. It is it means that sometimes you even have to calm down from whatever you think you know and be on the level of whoever you're trying to communicate with, because at the end of the day, if you're saying something and the next person is not understanding what you want them to understand, then you have not communicated, no matter how perfect word you use or how calm your tone is. You just have to understand what works for each person, you know. So communication it's a big deal. It's really a big deal, and it's something that is not one size fits all.
Do you pay attention personally to how you communicate?
Yeah. So for me, like I said, it depends on who I'm communicating with. And before we can get to that point where I absolutely know what word fits you, I think it's a process.
Really, what word
it's a process. There are people that I can pick up my phone and say, hey, what's up, right? And we start a conversation. And these people are not necessarily my age mate, or in terms of achievements, we are not on the same level. But because that relationship is there, and I know that life for them is not hold it to the chest. Like, I can talk to people that are my mentors in a very amazing way, and then we have amazing conversations. But there are people that there is nothing to really show for it, but you have to tell them good afternoon, sir, because you need to get what you want to get. Because at the end of the day, the point is to be able to have results, like you have said. So if you're communicating and you're not getting results, then what is the best form of communication to ensure that that result I need, I get it? After that time, I can decide based on my values and my the way I want my mental space and my space to look like. Say, you know what, I don't want to deal with you. But for that moment, whatever you want me to say there,
I will say it.
I will say it.
For me, communication is also not just about talking, it's about also listening. So when you're listening to whoever you're speaking with, or the person that is talking to you, you're able to get the vibe of that person and you know, get the right way to communicate with that person. So it's crucial.
All right, so let me bring in our guest. Kemi Ogunkpya is a leadership development strategist, certified management consultant, author, and member of the Forbes Business Council. Kemi has an MBA from the University of Wales, Cardiff, UK, and she is an alumna of the Sade Business School, University, Oxford. She is the founder of Rayleigh's Works, a leadership development and innovation hub, and she is also a member of the board of trustees of the Power Woman Network and the Lead Africa Now initiative. She's also an author. She's authored about 2 books, and she is the right guest for the show. She's joined us live in studio. Thank you so much, Kemi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So good to be here.
Thank you for being here.
First of all, I don't know where to put you on the spot. When you ask someone what happens in 2023 elections, and the person says it's not my problem, that was a very big. I mean, the president communicated without knowing that he communicated that he truly does not give. How do I put that in English? Where he does not care about Nigerians. So for me, I mean, it just fits so well in this subject of communication, how we say things, do things, our body language projects things that we truly self-sabotage. We're not growing, we're not successful. Personally, as human beings, people are wondering why. We have communicated that I'm not ready to grow.
True.
Right? So maybe you should help us walk us through, because we are starting the new year.
It is
want to
a
help
new
us
year.
beg all our, because we want everybody to grow, so that come December we'll do testimony.
Oh, yeah, we
that
have
when
to.
Kemi came, I listened and I took on the principles, and I'm here today.
I didn't bring my offering bag.
You know, so just help me understand how important is communication.
All right. I would say that communication is life, right? Because communication is that string that binds our intention. So whatever you intend or whatever thoughts you have, communication helps you relay that message, whether knowingly or unknowingly. So there are different types of or different forms of communication, and but then probably I start with the types. So we have the intrapersonal communication, which is communication that happens on the inside, and then we have interpersonal communication, which is communication with two or more people. But either ways, we're communicating always. So when you're speaking with yourself, or you're having the self-talks, the reflection, the solo talk, the mirror talk, you're saying something to yourself, right? So I always say that communication is first an inside job before it is an outside job. So before you hear that person voice out that thing, something has gone on the inside. There are some thoughts, there's some ideas, there's some beliefs that just find a way to express themselves vocally. But then it begins with, the job on the inside. Therefore, communication is very important, right? Let's look at the relationships around us, be it relationship at home, be it at work, be it with friends. You're always saying something, even when you're not saying something. So it is very, 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 very important.
Okay, I like that you have said intra and interpersonal. And please help me so I will not disgrace myself. The Bible, how did they say? Out of the fullness
of the heart, the mouth speaketh.
Absolutely.
So it means that we need to get the intrapersonal communication right, in order to get the
basis.
interpersonal communication
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
So what are the steps to begin? Because I think that for some people, of course, as you grow, as you experience people, as you communicate and interact, you get better. But the people who grew up in an environment where they had the right communication imbibed in them, and they just do things right, and they get better at it. And there are people who just, unfortunately, they don't know, right? So where do they start from, especially to get the intrapersonal communication right, in order to reflect on the interpersonal?
Okay, all right. I love that question, because usually that's where we skip, right? When you talk about communication, we're thinking of, oh, okay, I spoke with this person, I spoke with that person, and then they behave in this certain way. But then, like I said, it begins first with an inside job. Now, how do you get started? You first need to understand that it is a journey. So, yes, there are people who communicate effectively, but there's no one who is like perfect when it comes to communication. So you first have to start with you. And what you want to start with first is having that sense of awareness about who you are, right? What do you represent? How do you want to come across when you interact with people? How do you want to leave them? And that will heavily rely on the values that you have from the inside. So like you have rightly mentioned, there are those who well, I wouldn't say have been born with it, but there are those who have been in that environment where, you know, communication is just something that they grow into, right? And then they continue to improve. But for those who really have not had that experience, they want to first start by acknowledging, you know, that there's something that they need to work on. So for you, for example, who is in the workplace, and then you do not show your value. You're not able to communicate your value. When there are meetings, you're quiet. We don't know what's going on in your head, right? We don't know the value that you bring to the table. So until you're able to get to that point where you are aware and you start seeing yourself differently, say for example, you see yourself as someone of value, right? Then you believe that you can actually bring value to the table, and that way you're willing to want to communicate in such a way that you can be heard and then you can be seen. For some, it would be about the fact that they need to see themselves differently, right? Because when you do not see yourself from the place of being someone who is valuable, there's no way you want to address someone with value, right? So I see people who have communication with people and then they're on the other side of communication, right? They don't understand the place of respect. They don't understand it because they don't even speak with themselves with respect. So if you don't have it, then you can't give it. So it begins with awareness, where you can say, this is how I would like to show up, right? This is the value that I have on the inside. It begins with wanting to delve into the journey of self-awareness, intelligence, right? Or emotional intelligence, I should say. And being in that place where you understand that it's a journey, it's a continuum. The journey would never end. You will never get to the point where you feel like, oh yeah, you know, I'm the expert communicator, and then I can go to bed. So those are some of the things that we have to do. And then it would be about the values that we choose to hold on to, right? To say that I want to be someone who can communicate with people without being aggressive, right? For some people, that's what they have to work on, to talk with people without shouting, for example, right? There are people who don't know that is bad, and it's a turn off, because when you communicate with people in such a way that you appear aggressive, they don't want to be around you. Right? They don't want to stay around you.
Somebody's watching. I want to hear you.
It's true. They don't want to stay around you, right? And when opportunities even come, they're going to label you because of that kind of behavior. So it starts with awareness and having that journey of being intentional about who you want to be and how you want to represent yourself.
Okay. Let's just quickly take a very short break. When we come back from the break, I'll come to you, EC. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. Now, if you're just tuned in, we're having an amazing chat with Kemi Ogunkpya on accelerating growth and success through communication. Please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. So I'm going to come to you, EC, then I have a follow-up question.
Okay, so she talked about intrapersonal. So I'm going to come from the angle of interpersonal. You talked about the fact that people can be aggressive, and when they're aggressive, it could be a turn-off for individuals to communicate with them. And in a workplace, we have individuals who tend to, try to communicate in the best way. They seem to know how to, especially the bosses. So without them shouting or expressing themselves in that particular backing tone, they feel that they haven't made their impression on their subordinates. So what do you think is the best way to interact with your subordinate in a corporate entity to achieve growth?
All right, great question. Thank you for that, Easy. Now, I say that, shouting and all of these funny behaviors are learned behaviors, right? There's no child that is born into the world and then you know how to cry, but you're not, and raising your voice. We learn these things, right? And the same way people learn it, they can unlearn it, right? There are people who have grown up watching their parents shout. That's the only way they could communicate with them, because that's the only way they also knew how to communicate, right? And then they transfer it, and the child learns in that environment, because when we talk about how people grow, there's a place of nature and then there's a place of nurture. So they have been nurtured that way, and that's the only way they understand that you can talk to people. So the only way they can talk is to shout. So it's a learned behavior, and when people get to that point where they can identify those behaviors as behaviors that are not positive, then they want to start making that conscious effort to do something about it. Now, what do they need to do? They first need to unlearn certain things, right? And some of the things that need to be unlearned is that communication and even effective leadership, as you have spoken about the place of leadership, is not a function of the loudness of your voice, right? The people who are able to move mountains without screaming, the people who are able to turn around the situation of countries, of nations, without shouting. We have examples in history. So it's not about shouting. Leadership is not gra-gra, right? But it's about effective communication. And effective communication hinges a whole lot on respect, right? On empathy, on consideration.
And respect is actually not a senior thing.
It's
Respect
not.
is the 2-year-old, you respect them.
not.
You respect the 3-year-old, you respect the 20-year-old, you respect the 80-year-old.
Absolutely.
So, you know, but some people have been groomed to not believe that those kind of people deserve
to be respected.
True, I like what you're talking about, shouting. The person says, I know you're talking, yes, I'm talking about you. But, you know, it don't send me a message. No, I was going to say that because we're talking about growth, right? And how it is important for you to know the right channel of communication for you to be able to position yourself for accelerated growth, right? Because, I mean, you mentioned something earlier when you talked about the boardroom, where somebody has something inside of them, but because they do not understand how to communicate it, you might be the brightest person in the room, but because you're not able to express and communicate that brightness to the world, you know, almost all the time where there's promotions or where there's opportunities for you to grow in your career and all of that, you are not even amongst the people that are being considered. So how do we help ourselves, right, to start to channel and communicate right? Yeah.
All right. So the first thing to do, like I said, it still starts from the place of awareness, you know, because when people see themselves differently, they will act differently. And there's something I usually say, that you cannot become better at what you do unless you become better at who you are. So you see that it first begins from the place of self. So when we get to that point where we understand that first, your personality, you know, is not an excuse for your lack of communication. So you have people who will say things like, oh yeah, you know, I'm an introvert, you know, I'm an ambivert, and then you know, you hear a lot of those things. But then how does that impact your growth? How does that impact success? If it's something that's already in your way and then it's taking you off the privilege of some opportunities, then it's something that you have to work in. So you have to start by being honest with yourself. I call it a family meeting. Call yourself to a family meeting, and that family meeting is between your body, your spirit, and your soul, where you can have a honest conversation to say, you know what, this is a gap, right? People have to be that honest to sit in with themselves and be able to say, you know what, I struggle in this area. I struggle in my ability to communicate effectively. There's a particular lady that I worked with, you know, that I coached, and her challenge was that she couldn't stand in the front of people to talk. Why? It was the course of coaching that we realized what the problem was. Guess what? The challenge was that she experienced someone speak in front of a church and the person forgot her lines, and she felt that this person got humiliated, and for that reason she stopped speaking in public, right? She runs a business and then she would not come out to speak anywhere. So it was until she had to deal with that, but then instead with identification of saying, you know what, I have a challenge here, and then I want to work on it. So yes, let's understand the place of competence. Let's understand the place of being critical and honest with ourselves to say this is the gap. And then when we do, we start taking steps, right? And some of the steps sometimes could be that you may require training. Sometimes you may require coaching. Sometimes you may require therapy. Right, because the challenge could be that you're traumatized from something, just like the example I gave of this woman who, the experience did not happen to her, but she saw it, right? And then it left a mark, or it left an imprint on her that impacted her business significantly. So those are some of the things that I think that we need to do, and then start taking those baby steps.
So I was sorry, Elsie, I was going to say that, you know, somehow how people say that, oh, this is how I am, you know, this is how I am. How do you know that you're making progress? When you start to take the right steps, you know, as a like you're trying to communicate right. How do you know you're making progress?
So I think my question also follows to that, right? Because I hear you and I hear awareness And in that awareness, it also has to come with a lot of sensitivity for self and for people around you to know the impact of your communication and how your behaviors affect other people, right? Yeah. And of course, admitting it is the first and major step.
Absolutely.
I think I want you to take a step back in this, what's the word now? Training that you're giving us, let me put it that way, to help people understand how to know there is a problem, because I think that's a major thing. You hear, this is the way I am. If you're not hearing what I'm saying, but that is what I mean, right? A lot of phrases we use because we just want the way we are to be, how it is meant to be. So how do we even know that there is a problem? Like individually, what are those things you need to look out for you to begin to know that now I have a problem. I need to check myself. Where is the problem?
Okay, all right. So some of the things you want to look out for is, how does your communication with others pan out? So whenever I speak with people, it degenerates into argument. There's a problem somewhere, right? That's an indicator that you have to take as feedback. When you find yourself in an environment where you constantly feel little, like you don't want to be seen and heard, there's a problem somewhere, because you haven't been created to just be in the background and just evaporate. So those are some of the things to look out for. If you find yourself in a boardroom, for example, or in a meeting, and you never say anything, right? Even when you know you have answers on the inside, you have burning concerns, there's a challenge somewhere. So those are some of the indicators. And then the other thing that we can also leverage on is feedback. Right? But a lot of people do not listen. We hear, but we don't listen. But if we can step out from that place of just hearing to actually listening.
It seems you just saw what I just did right now, because that was going to be my next question. In terms of, I've had conversations with people, and I'm already addressing what you're saying or what you're about to say, and you're still going back to it, and you're arguing about it, and you're still offended. And I still have to draw you back to say, no, this is what it is. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. We have sorted it, but you're not hearing me, or you're just listening to
what you want
response,
to
not listening to understand the situation of things and to find solution. So is there even a skill or a way to tell people or teach people how to actually listen, to have a communication?
Absolutely.
Not because I have to say something and I need this to be done. I already planned what the conversation should be in my head before I left the house. And maybe I'm going to meet tomorrow, I'm going to have a conversation. I already said, she will say this, I will say this.
And yes,
I'll say this. If she doesn't say it, I will say it like
exactly
this.
What
happened. If it doesn't go that way, then
there's problem.
So the natural state of human interaction really delves more towards that place where we do not hear or listen to understand, right? We hear to respond, right? And it's probably natural. So that's why it takes a level of self-awareness to get to that point where you can listen to your thoughts, you can identify the triggers, right? And you can keep yourself under check. So naturally, people have intentions, right? When I'm coming to meet you, I have a plan now that, this 5 billion contract, I must get it. And then you're speaking English. I don't want to hear that. I just want you to say that, you know what, this is the check, right? And then I bam, right? And I roll with the big boys. That's what I want to hear. So it takes intentionality for us to get to that point where we know that we lose a whole lot when we're not listening, right? We lose a whole lot. We lose time when we're not listening, because you have to go back to the conversation and then you're talking over and over again. So there's a whole lot that gets lost in our lack of listening. So people have to get to that point where we can say, you know what, I'm going to keep myself on the check. I'm going to go for this meeting and I'm going to listen. You say, like Fortune 500 companies actually send out people, their leaders, to go on training to learn how to listen. It's a huge challenge, right? And that's because listening is one of the skills that we feel we
understand it.
Yes, now you've been listening from the womb. You have to come out of the womb to learn how to talk, how to work. But listening, you're like, we're 5 and 6. Like, I've been listening to songs from my mother's womb. So we assume we know how to listen. But to really listen, you have to become intentional.
So I was going to ask a question. Sorry, I'll come to you, see. That you know how people also come again, this question of listening or conversation or communication. This person believes that they have superior knowledge. So at every time, in every conversation, they already have like their ways set. You know, how do you break it? Because the question I asked was about, you know, you become uncomfortable when somebody is telling you the truth. You begin to be shaky. So I want to know that, is that progress when you're in the learning process of listening, communicating better? Is that progress for you when you become uncomfortable? Or, you know, because I think that should be progress if you ask me. You know, so how do you know that, okay, you're actually making progress with somebody that said, you know what, I've taken out time, this is what I want to do now, I want to be very deliberate about communicating right and all of that. How would you know?
So the progress would actually go beyond the fact that I'm shaking or, you know, it would actually be that, so say for example, before I used to argue, right? When people are talking, the only voice you would hear is my voice. If I get to the point where I'm actually in a conversation and I'm not leading that conversation and the conversation doesn't go south, that is progress, right? And so I want to go back home and give myself a pat on the back and say, Kemi, you were great today. How did you like, you know, you almost feel like your words are coming out and then you're trying to just stuff them back in. So that's progress. But then that level of progress would require some level of awareness, right? Where I can say to myself that I feel comfortable with feedback. So if when people are still giving you feedback, all your body is vibrating, you're not ready, right? But when I can actually listen to feedback that is not, you know, positive in my ears, but then I can take that feedback and say, oh, you know what, thank you, I'll think about that. That's progress.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Quickly.
So, we have individuals who come out and say, oh, be yourself. And you see, there was something that Osaiwame said earlier about take me as I am. This is how I am. Just take me as I am. So when people come in and they tell you, oh, to communicate better, you have to assume a persona to be able to express yourself better. Do you think that the person is assuming something that he is not or she is not? Okay. So what's the best way to, you know, go around that?
All right. Great question again, Isi. Now, let's understand that this is how I am. It's bad behavior, right? It's an excuse for people wanting to choose to be responsible. Okay. Right? And that's because on the journey of growth, one of the key elements is modification. Behavioral modification. We talk about social interaction. You go into an event or boardroom and then you say, oh, my voice is loud. If your voice is loud, you can take it down. It's your responsibility. I'm not going to be the one to say, oh, no, that's how you are.
I mean, it's not our generator. You know there's generator. So you're shouting on the phone.
What is everybody's voice in the body is loud?
So, exactly. Yeah. So, imagine the commotion. So, it's not about this who I am. We're on a journey of growth. And on the journey of awareness, success, and growth, you have to constantly be in that place where you're shaping and reshaping yourself, where you're learning, but most importantly, unlearning and relearning. Because a lot of people are full already. There's no room for learning.
They have to unlearn.
They have to first unlearn. Let's start with unlearning and then we can now go on to. But then we have to get to that point where we also understand that one of the evidence of growth in our lives is behavioral modification. And it doesn't mean that you're changing yourself or changing your personality, because unfortunately you can't change your personality, right? You can only modify behavior. So if you get to that point where you understand that who do I need to be, you can communicate with everybody the same way. So that's where a lot of people also get it wrong. You want to communicate with everybody the same way. That, you need to understand that everybody has different personalities and their communication styles are also different. So for those who want to grow and succeed, you need to understand how to get the key. Everybody has a key, right? You need to understand their communication key so that you can access them. So some people don't want stories. They don't want you to tell me, oh, I'm feeling like,
Just go straight to the point.
Go straight to the point. Give me the numbers, and we're good. We're friends. But when you take me to Maiduguri and then bring me to France and then you're taking me on the journey of the world, I don't want to hear that. Yeah. So we have to get to that point where we start taking responsibility for our actions and our inactions. We have to get to that point where we know that bad behavior is bad behavior, and there's nothing like this is who I am. And I say this, I said, this is who I am. Please stop it. Behave yourself.
So quickly, because we've run out of time, body language. Let's not even talk about the ones that come out of our mouth, right? Body language communication. I mean, how do we ensure that we're not self-sabotaging our success and our growth through our body language?
Body language, all right. So it also starts with us being intentional, because I say that when there's a war between the mouth and the body wins. For example, I'm saying, come. Most likely you would have gone before you wanted that. She actually said come, right? So we have to be intentional about our body language and what we communicate. So for example,
and there's a war between the mouth and the body. The body always wins.
The body wins, right? So if you want to be seen as someone who is valuable, someone who is confident, you don't want to go about slashing, and trying to minimize yourself. You have to be able to sit right. You have to be able to stand right. Your shoulders have to be high up. Your head, your movement, or communicate something. People can sense your lack of confidence from thousands of miles away, right? You have to understand how to look in people's eyes. You have to understand how to, just show up being confident. So it's a whole lot of work, but then people have to be intentional about wanting to pay, to achieve the gains that they want.
I was going to say that to wrap up with that, like, if somebody wants to go through that journey, how do you help the person, and what would you advise the person to do?
There are a lot of information online now. You probably want to start with that. Get into a training program, get into a coaching program. For some, it's therapy, like I said, because the lack of confidence is from years of battery, both verbally, emotionally, and physically too sometimes. So if you feel that, I'm trying to achieve something, I'm trying to come out of myself, but I can't, know that there's a problem somewhere and be willing to seek for help. And if you have to pay for it, please do.
It's an investment in self. Talking about body language and what comes out of the mouth, for me, I think that's one of the reasons I like face mask. Because when I wear it, so I have a lot of facial expression, even if I want to just comport myself and be like, it's not my business, my face is really you know that this girl is not comfortable. So that's the part I'm working on, right? But like I said, the face mask is helping me.
It's not helping. You can see your eyes.
It helps. You won't get it. You won't get it. It helps.
You can see your eyes. This is a serious one. But I think we've had a fantastic conversation. We've had a fantastic conversation. So because for me, I think it's an important tool to have in the year to come. And again, because the world is a global village, and I mean, people are actually sitting at their bedrooms on their beds and being interviewed globally from different parts of the world, getting jobs. I know people that got a lot of international jobs. I know a few people that got a lot right at the comfort of their home. And most of the times you are faced with a face-to-face Zoom interview or whatever. And like you rightly said, the body language, if you do not exude that confidence, and maybe the role is supposed to be a senior role, it's automatic failure because you do not succeed in that adventure. So for me, I think it's an important tool, for you to make it a part of your budget for this year. Thank God we're starting the year and all of that. And because of COVID, honestly speaking, it has opened a lot of opportunities for young people to be employed anywhere in the world. So this communication tool is very important.
And even talking about global village, what you just said, we didn't get to the part of cultural differences. So if you're communicating with somebody in Asia, there are things you can say here that is okay, and you can't say in that meeting. So that's another ballgame.
Entirely. So you have to just go and look for Kemi. She's on Instagram and she would help you. Honestly speaking, it was important for us to have this conversation. So we move, you know, into 2022. Right. This thing is important.
Yeah.
President says he does not care about 2023. I can't get over that. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then, so we should all crash and burn.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Issy. Thank you, Elsie Godwin.
Thank
All right,
you.
so before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram. It's at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and more importantly, follow all our social media engagements. And remember to like, share, comment, invite your family and friends to watch and follow the show. We are giving you great conversations and actionable, tools as well. So please follow the conversation and help somebody out, and also share the links with them. Thank you so much for watching and believing in the Ways brand. We'll see you guys tomorrow, live at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. So if you missed today's quote, here it is again. The human connection is the key to personal and career success. This is from Paul J. Mayer. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy.